Carried. And now we turn to the item number 4, the representation review final proposal. And I'd like to invite staff to give a brief introduction.
He mihi nui ki a koutou. On the, apologies for all the words I got wrong then. The June 10th, Council completed its deliberations on the representation review hearings and the very many submissions received. In doing so, Council provided staff, us, unambiguous direction to prepare the final proposal for Council's approval today, and within the statutory time frame, a challenging one. So we're here today to do that. Recommendation number 2N2 contains some corrected figures for community board populations. The corrections are not profound, but the information is now correct. This was our error in using a slightly out-of-date table. It's now being fixed fully. My apologies for not picking this up earlier, but it does not have any implications on ward boundaries or anything else. It's just an administrative error. So if you're looking at the corrections there, that's what it means. Lastly, our team are here to answer any questions. Nami.
Thank you. Any questions? I will, Yanni.
Can I just have staff clarify whether it's possible to move an amendment or not, and if so, if not?
No, we discussed that last week, when we met last. We dealt with all of the resolutions on that occasion, and I made it clear at that point that this was the final decision in order to be notified within the time frame that we're required to have. We had all of the debates last week or the week before, was it? Whatever date it was. And today is the date for the final sign-off, which we will have a debate on, and any of the issues that you want to debate you can raise in the context of the debate. So there are no amendments today.
So can staff just clarify then how amendments have been able to be made between when we had the final hearing deliberation decision and today?
We had we made it very clear at the outset that the issues that were to be debated were debated last time we met, and that was when we dealt with all of the issues, and there were issues that you raised by way of amendment and others did there as well. Some of those were resolved in support and some were not supported, so there is no room for additional amendments today.
Sorry, Yanni, I think I know what Yanni's talking about. He's not been direct enough. There were changes made to what we put forward as a recommendation by staff, and so I guess we want a response to why that.
Oh, well, I thought John had mentioned the correction to the...
Yeah. On the meeting where Council considered, made its final deliberations and considered all amendments was the 10th of June. Earlier in the week, they brought to our attention that there was an anomaly with Knightstream Park, and in the effort to accommodate the community's wishes over Wigram, inadvertently a change was made splitting Knightstream Community of Interest in two. We made it was unintentional. It wasn't subject to any submissions. We made a change. We sent an email through the Office of the Chief Executive to all councillors before the meeting on the 10th. We sent it on the 9th of June. So everyone understood the situation, and councillors gave us clear and unambiguous direction at that meeting on the community board boundaries. We also sought the comfortableness of the two councillors, Councillor Chen and Anne, on that beforehand. So we dealt with that. No further comment was received on the 10th of June, so we've proceeded and incorporated that into the final proposal.
Thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, just a question about, because I sent a note through to you, John, prior to the last one around Kirk Road, given it's pretty much all rural and about a population of 8 or something, going into the Hereward ward, because other aspects had gone into Hereward because it was all kind of the rural that's non-Banks Peninsula. And why could that not go in there if it doesn't change the population by pretty much anything you couldn't count on one hand?
But from memory, and Chris might be able to back me up. It wasn't covered by a submission. The change in the rationale was very difficult to understand. Chris, could you?
No, that's pretty much it. So any amendments to your initial proposal should be based on a submission. The only other is sort of consequential changes by moving a boundary or something like that. That would be why you would, make those changes. But if a submitter had asked for a change, then you can consider changing your initial proposal.
Right, because on the other side of my ward, it increases from a submission around rural, but did it have to be someone who lived in that block saying that the rural should be all under one ward?
It doesn't have to be someone who lives there, but it just has to be the subject of the submission. That's my understanding.
It is, I am going to cover off the technical legal aspect of what we're doing here and some of the constraints that it does put on the process. This is subject to an appeal though, so and objections that can be lodged with the council after we pass the representation review today, and it's publicly notified. So, are there any more questions, Yanni?
Thanks. Just at the on page 97, it says that the boundary between Central and Linwood Ward moves to Enswells Road, Ferry Road, Randolph, Allwins and Linwood Ave, retaining the Phillipstown community within a single ward. Submit a request. Can you just advise which submitters actually specifically asked for that and what other requests they made that were ruled out and why? I'm just concerned that the impression on that section of the report doesn't accurately portray the submissions that were raised in regards to both the Charleston and Phillipstown area.
None of us can remember off the top of our heads, but we think it may have been the community hub.
Yanni, we had the Phillipstown Community Hub made a representation that it remain inside the boundaries of one ward and not be split. That was the
That's not the question.
that was the submission.
That's not the point. So why has it been taken out of the Linwood ward?
That's a different issue. And we voted on that last time and we debated it last time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move the motion, and do I have a seconder for that? Andrew Turner. I'm going to open it up for debate myself, and I'm not going to speak for the full 5 minutes. I just simply want to say that this process is actually governed by the provisions of the Local Electoral Act 2001. It has very strict criteria against which we have to comply. It is notated by a schedule of timeframes that restrict what we can and can't do once we start the process. I probably was a little concerned at starting the process earlier than we legally had to, but now that we've come to the end of it, I'm feeling a lot more relieved that we are doing so. For people that have made submissions and where we have changed our proposal or haven't accepted their submission, then they have a right of objection under the Act. And for those that where we have made changes, people have a right of appeal. So this is going to go in front of I imagine the local government commission for a decision. Now, I just want to make a couple of points. So one, I think that this is an imperfect process. I personally would like to see in the future that this become more independent of the council. I like the idea that we engage with our communities and discuss with them the various boundaries and aspects of communities of interest. I really like the council doing that. But I think that we should be an information gatherer for the Local Government Commission, which should be the final decision maker. And it should, and if there has to be an appeal basis on a point of law, then so be it. If there needs to be an appeal process that sits above that. But I feel a sense of disquiet about us sitting around the table, all representing different parts of the city, a different, district that was amalgamated with the city. I mean, we still are suffering from the consequences, the direct consequences of merging the Christchurch City Council with the Banks Peninsula District Council. And so that just does leave a sense of challenge that's put in front of us every single time. I know that people won't agree with certain aspects of certain boundaries. We have really tried to stay within the plus and minus 10% with the exception of Banks Peninsula, but we have also every time we move a boundary, that's so many other people we've got to move from another one, so it's been swings and roundabouts, and it's been a very challenging exercise. I'd like to acknowledge the work of the staff that sit in behind the scenes and literally wade through mesh blocks trying to work out how you can possibly get the right number of people into the right number of wards and how you can best achieve that. There have been savings to the council in this proposal in the reduction of a community board. I know that there are people who feel that we should just simply halve the number of councillors. I don't agree that this is like a board of directors, a company running the running the city. I actually personally think very strongly that this is about, and we sit around the table as representatives of the city as a whole, even though we come from different parts of the city, we come from different backgrounds, we bring that experience and expertise to the table and then are supported in decision making. I don't like a lot of the provisions of the Local Government Act. I think they restrict us in some respects. And I would prefer to see us see that changed in a way that made it more available and open to people in terms of how they contribute to the decision making as well. But on this process, we've followed due process, which is set out in the Local Electoral Act. I'd like to see changes in the future, but I think we have to await some further changes in Wellington before that does occur. So I'll open it up to others. Catherine.
Can I just start by thanking staff, because I know you've done a tremendous amount of work with these boundary changes. Like you, Leanne, I feel really uncomfortable having to make a decision on a ward that we're all elected in, but I did really enjoy the process of being able to talk to our residents and being able to help them feed their feedback through into the process. I did want to just use this platform because I understand a lot of residents associations and individual residents have put their feedback through into this process, and I understand that this final proposal doesn't meet everyone's needs, and an example of that is say in our ward, Matai Street, and people want the existing boundary lines to exist. I think there's a property of around 310, but just a reminder that this isn't the end of the process and that there is an appeals process after this. And I'm sure councillors and staff are more than happy to support anyone who wants to go through that process as well. I will be supporting this, hesitant to, but I will. But just really want to thank you for all the work that you've done in getting this through.
Thank you. Sarah?
Ōtautahi Christchurch has a really proud history of fighting for women's equality. We were at the centre of the national suffrage movement, and only 500 metres away from here is the National Suffrage Memorial. The first woman MP in the country was from Littleton, and Ada Wells, our first female city councillor, was elected 104 years ago. We got to the point where we had around 50-50 representation around this table only a couple of terms ago. But we've dropped significantly since then, with only women making up only 25% of councillors last term and 31% this term. And we're not proposing to look at it and what to do about it. In 2016, with the best of intentions and concerned about some geographic areas not being represented, Christchurch moved from large wards with 2 councillors and 5 community board members elected at large to small single wards with 1 councillor and 2 community board members. It has mostly led to local areas being represented by people who live there. But in these areas, both electoral terms, there have been councillors who live in other parts of the city. It hasn't fixed the problem, and it can't, as the legislation is clear that you don't have to live where you stand. But it went too far, and it had unintended consequences for gender equality, and we need to take a step back, but only with councillors leaving the community board members in the smaller wards. So why should we have multi-councillor wards? It gives voters more choice. Since we've moved to single councillor wards, the number of candidates per seat has dropped from an average of 3.9 to 2.6. In 2016, 4 councillors were even elected unopposed, so no one got to vote for them. It has also seen a drop in the number of women standing, with only 7 out of 46 candidates last election. 2, it gives residents more options after the election. With 3 councillors representing your area, you can choose which you contact. Some will align more with your views than others, and sometimes one is sick and another can fill in, or one occasionally resigns for a better job and others can fill in that area. There will be 3 to back up your cause or take on your issues. It also promotes a best for city approach with less patch protection. Community board members are tasked with the local geographic decisions and issues, and councillors need to keep their heads up at the city level and communities of interest, as well as knowing what local residents need. Local representation is done really well by community board members, and the desire to have local people elected as councillors hasn't eventuated. And last but not least, our communities have asked for it in the consultation process, and 3/4 of those who mentioned councillors being elected at large were in favour. We have made significant boundary changes based on 1 submission, yet 18 submissions with clear evidence have not led to a change here. Last meeting, we also had the chance to ask for more information about STV and whether to have a conversation with our communities about how they elect their representatives. And I was really disappointed that by majority, council decided not even to ask for the information that would allow us to make that decision. How we elect our representatives really matters, and we should all get a say in how it happens. I'd urge you to appeal this if you'd like more choice, more accountability around this table.
Thank you. James?
Thanks. Look, I do believe that we've got to a point where what we're recommending is better than what was decided 5 or 6 years ago when this was last undertaken. 2 wards making up some urban community board areas, others made up of 3, 6 members on some with 2 councillors, 9 on others with 3, go figure. We've gone through what's been a long process, a lot of submissions, a lot of different views, and a lot of logical points that have been raised throughout that process. But what's heartening is a lot of those, not all of them, but a lot of them have been acted upon and incorporated into the final proposal that we've got in front of us now. I still think there are too many councillors. I do think that there is a model which would be far simpler than what we currently have and what's in the final proposal, but this is democracy. And although I'm not going to be able to get the dream outcome that you want all the time, it doesn't mean that you don't necessarily vote against it when it doesn't work that way. I liked the idea of halving the number of councillors and delegating the local capital program to community boards to truly empower them. And I do believe that would truly promote better representation and markedly improve the council's effectiveness and efficiency. But the fact of the matter is you've got to work with what you've got in front of you. So I could vote against this final proposal or abstain from it because I think it's a long way from perfect. But I'm not going to do that because it is better than what we've had. So I think in governance, and certainly in local democracy, when you're in a position to decide, or in this case, make a recommendation on something that's going to be better than what you had, I think that you need to work constructively with that, embrace it, and then get on with it. So there'll be plenty of times when I think what's in front of us is not going to be in the best interest of the city or not a genuine step forward. And I can promise you that you will know about it when that's the case, but today is not one of those days. Maybe Monday.
Thank you. Anyone else? Jimmy, Yanni, and Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, because we should all listen to the those oral submission and review the all, and also all those written submission, 226 written submission, 41 oral submission, and through the 3 times deliberations, particularly on 24, 26 of May, as well as the 3rd of June. But particular, this final draft, the kind of proposal is made, I think the majority still made those expectations of the submissions. So, for instance, like the support a single member ward. Each ward is 1 councillor and 2 committee member, particularly in the urban area. But also recognize the Banks Peninsula because it's isolated, those community. But anyway, eventually still, will present to the kind of local government commission because due to it's not compliant with the criteria of the 10% of the population. And also some criteria we are all aware, they respect to the kind of the Local Electoral Act 2001, like the mayor, she mentioned earlier, regarding to the population, regarding to the whether single or multi the council ward, and also we reduce from the community board from 7 to the 6, etc. But I think still majority made the kind of community needs, particularly in my area, Hornby, Hoswell, and also the Richmond area, like my area, like community, but particularly like to, the Broomfield and the wider Richmond Park area still keep in the Hornby area, and Richmond may be the triangle, Bush Inn, etc. still, and also unit in still in kind of the one the kind of war, etc. They're pretty good. But regarding to the some for future one, I think we still have a chance for a future for the local government. Particularly we are all aware the local government. The kind of ministry that requests independent 5 members to review those local government future reform. That, for instance, how many councils at the moment 76 the nationwide, whether the system is best way for the small ward or bigger ward, STV or is FPP the system. Each ward population how many? The other one how to improve the more diverse for those candidates. This one, I have strong belief those independent panel, they will consider this one. Generally speaking, I'm still support this one. Only a little bit disappointed is because why Sackburn already under the Hornby, but this one not in. Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
But this might just debate. Yes.
Thank you, Yanni.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to start out by saying that to read the agenda on the bottom page on 96, to say that the changes to the Phillipstown-Charleston area have been borne out because of submitted request are so far from the reality of what people spoke to us about. I find it incredibly concerning that we're told that the Charleston area moves into the central ward to keep them with Phillipstown and inner city east communities, and that was a submitted request, and that the boundary between Central and Linwood Wood moves to Enswells Road, Ferry Road, Randolph Street, Allwins Road, and Linwood Ave, retaining the Phillipstown community within a single ward. To just cherry pick one thing that people may have said in a submission and ignore the other 5 points that they've made, in my view, is completely unacceptable in terms of us as a council listening to what people said. Here's what the Phillipstown Community Charitable Trust told us. They did have concerns about the idea of Phillipstown being split, and they did support it being retained in one ward. They believe Phillipstown relates more to the Linwood ward, and that Phillipstown looks towards Linwood to access their services, and that Gerald Ave is a natural boundary. They do not see their community of interest extending north into East Papanui wards, and that area has no relevance to them. They would suggest a Linwood Central Fennelton Community Board, and that they understand the logic of reorganising the wards into equal-sized community boards, but that they relate to Linwood support services and community groups, and that being put into the central ward would significantly change how we work. That was just what someone said to us in this room, and I hope that we were all listening. But to use that to justify the changes that have been proposed is just unbelievable in regards to the decision that we're being asked to make. There were other residents who also made submissions. People in Charleston, people from the Linwood Resource Centre, the Charleston Neighbourhood Group. And, just to read another one, Charleston is currently represented. The area would suffer by losing this local connection and understanding that these people offer us. As Charleston and the neighbouring areas like Phillipstown, Waltham and Linwood, we have very specific social problems. Local representation and understanding of these circumstances is paramount. We feel strongly that we would not be properly represented by forcefully being joined with affluent northern parts of Christchurch. And then they go on to say that they do not have any socio-economic, cultural or geographic connections with the supposed northern wards that we would have to join. Our area is seen as eastern, and we've always felt connected with the eastern hills, but not the northern parts of school. For instance, the high schools that are in this area take children from the eastern parts of Christchurch. So I just hope that councillors have actually taken the time to read the submissions, because if you read the submissions, you can see quite clearly that on page 96, to use the submitter request as justification for the changes proposed
Thank you.
is nothing short of ridiculous.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. I don't believe that there are too many councillors, and I do think that by and large single ward representation at both councillor and community board level has largely been effective. I do accept the figures that we've been presented by submitters on gender diversity, realising that gender is only one aspect of diversity, an important one, but it's just one aspect. And I'm keen to work to achieve greater diversity at both council and community board level. But I don't see that single ward representation is necessarily a barrier to that, and certainly there are other factors that would come into play there. I'm largely happy with this final proposal. I'm particularly happy that Banks Peninsula continues to be recognised as an isolated community. There was an example just in the last couple of weeks of access being impeded with the blocking of the state highway at Little River by flooding, which cut off the whole of the peninsula from Little River onwards from the outside world by road access. We also know that there are technological constraints. There are parts of the peninsula which have got no cell phone reception, no broadband connection, which are essentially isolated in a number of ways from the rest of our community and from other isolated communities on the peninsula. So, yes, Banks Peninsula is a community of interest. In fact, it's a number of communities of interest that are separated by distance and other separations from the rest of our communities. I'm also pleased that this final proposal largely reflects the proposal on which we consulted. In particular, I'm pleased to see the proposal continuing to reflect the single-member wards, community board members elected by ward, and community board members elected by subdivision on Banks Peninsula. This keeps democracy closest to the people. It encourages people from within their communities and from the grassroots to stand for election in communities that they know and in communities where people know them. It makes running an election campaign affordable and achievable, and it provides an accountable responsibility to community board members and councillors once they're elected over a part of the city which they know and where that level of representation and engagement is both achievable and where they can be effective. So, by and large, I'm supportive with what we've got in front of us this afternoon. Thank you to staff that have been involved in what I know is a huge amount of work in working through the various stages of the process. And thank you to all of those community members who came along and told us what they thought in the submissions that we've read and listened to.
Tim?
Thank you, and like some of the others, I'd certainly like to thank staff first. It's been an incredible job and an incredible amount of work, so thank you very much for what you've done. I do agree with the Mayor with regards to the process. It would be great for the Electoral Commission to work directly with our communities and assisted by our staff. I think it would take a lot of pressure off our staff and make it a more neutral process, if you like. So I think that's something that we could look at in the future or discuss with them for the future. I'm one of the councillors at this table that was mentioned before with regards to being elected unopposed. I do believe that was because I'd done a pretty good job. I do believe in single ward councillors because you are accountable to your ward and your ward's population and your communities, whilst also having that overview as we swear in when we are elected to represent the city in the first hand and then the ward in the second hand. So that's always a tough one, and we cannot always deliver what our communities want. So we do our best, and I think being a single ward councillor, you have to stand up and be counted with regards to that. It also then makes our community boards and councillors working with our communities stand up and have to be counted, because now that we've got, or may have, 3 ward community boards, we have to support each other in those communities outside of our particular ward, as we do anyway as councillors for the city. And I think we're all fairly open-minded and reasonable when other councillors come with particular issues in their wards, and if we've got compassion and ability, then we look at those and take those points seriously, and I believe this council always has. I was really interested with the several submissions about participatory budgeting, and I went back to a couple of those people, and I did say, and historically we have had the Strengthening Communities Fund, and we've sat down with members of those communities and looked and dealt with funding out, and it was a really good process for them to understand the financial constraints of the community board and the council. So I think that would be something in the future to look at outside of this. I think it'd be a really good process to get back to. Just it opens understanding for the financial restraints that we have. And I think that, that's it for me. Thank you.
Anyone else? Aaron and Pauline?
Yeah, it's a bit of swings and roundabouts in this. I think one of the wins is for the people of Belfast. They're reunited. The people that live both sides of Main North Road are all in the same ward now. That will mean that it'll be good to see a bit of equity between the funding of the community boards for their strengthening communities, because that part of town will certainly pull some resources, but it will save some money for the Shirley Papanui community board. Papanui Innes. Now, sorry, I was just going back to the old days.
Which won't be a community board on its own anymore.
When you look at the map of Hereward, it's second only in size to Andrews ward of Banks Peninsula. Is the one bit that's missing is just the paddocks or the rural locations in the Hornby ward. Beyond that, it would have worked really well, I think, if they were all in the one ward. They have very similar issues around quarries, rivers, one of the greatest rivers in the country running along the edge of our city there in our ward. I'd have to say Hereward's probably the most diverse ward, not as in what most people call diversity, but in the sense that we've got 3 breeding programs of native species, an international breeding program, an international airport, all of the quarries, touching on a prison. I mean, it's quite a unique ward, and so having those issues rolled into that same ward, I think, would have made sense, because it meant that myself or whoever's elected in Hereward could be very schooled up on those issues, and then when they come up, they just see the one councillor. Otherwise, like we all get calls now and then. My last one was probably Monday. I had an angry resident from another ward ringing up, so I had to get the earful first before I passed on Mike's number to say, call Mike, it's in his ward. And it was nothing to do with Mike's performance. It was around a rubbish truck going, and not one of ours, a private contractor at something like 5 a.m. Was the issue, and she wants a bylaw. Now, so those are the things we face, and when you have clear boundaries, and that's why I have some sympathies for Yanni, is when you have clear boundaries, it's easy for people, and for staff as well as elected members and for the public to understand who they should be getting hold of and where they kind of live. So maybe the next time round, or if there's some reviews and they end up in my ward, they'll be most welcome.
Thank you. Pauline.
Thank you. Look, a lot of stuff's already been said, but a huge amount of work is recognised here, particularly for staff. And I think what we've heard was important was, to try and focus this around communities of interest, which isn't always easy because you've got a lot of crossovers there and grey areas, and then you've also got your natural boundaries like rivers and roads. For instance, currently St Albans has 3 wards running through it, and this new proposal will now be 2. But in her submission, Emma Twaddell stated that St Albans residents felt that it's more important to feel that they are represented rather than quibble about which ward that they are represented by. Richmond Residents and Business Association were keen to see themselves in one board area, and this proposal makes that happen. So it's really super challenging to balance the population numbers and representation equity. So big thanks again for getting to this point. And we have to recognise that there is no perfect solution, obviously. However, I believe this proposal is highly workable. It gives us 3 wards per community board, fixing that situation that we currently have of some wards having 3, some having 2. So some boards have 9 members, some boards have 6 members. So in this proposal, they're now all 9 members and 3 wards. And I think it's absolutely vital to live in the ward that you are representing. I fully believe in the importance of localism and accessibility of elected members for their constituents, and we heard submitters supporting this view. The diversity and equity issue must be resolved locally and not at large, in my view. So once again, this is not a perfect solution. There is no perfect solution. Not everyone will be happy. Not everyone ever is happy. And there will be people who didn't get a boundary line drawn where they wanted it, and others who are happy with those lines. So thanks again, staff, for this huge amount of work. I think when this started, John, you had an afro, didn't you? But I think I'm very supportive of this, and I think it's a very equitable proposal. So thanks again. And all the staff back there too, you're doing all the hard work. So cheers.
James Daniels.
Kia ora. No, actually, I was here at the beginning, and I'm pleased to be here at the end. And at the beginning, he didn't have an afro, but he was wearing a tie, and the dress standards have slipped. Okay. Look, with this review, I mean it when I say I didn't know that I was going to be involved in this before I was elected, but here I am, and it's been an absolute privilege to be going through this. Although I do agree with the Mayor's comments, some of those comments about it doesn't seem right that we determine who and where the people vote for us. Just going on to a couple of comments that have been made prior to now. Those elected members who have been re-elected without any opposition in the past, I almost call point of order on Councillor Scandrett about his being re-elected unopposed because he was so good. But I do, and on a serious note, I do hope we get more people standing for this role. I didn't know 2 years ago what the role really was. I thought I knew, but I found out a lot in the last 2 years. What we need is a bigger pool of people who would be interested in this. And I would like to see them younger. We talk about diversity, and we all know that the city is very diverse. We all know that we range from the right-winged racists, like the ignorant email we all got today about Māori wards.
No?
Yeah,
Mayor's message. Sorry.
Okay, I'll forward it to you.
Oh, don't.
No, I've deleted it. But through to left-leaning, and then in the middle is that silent majority that I hope will come to understand why this exists. And we are very lucky to have this in our society. We were born in New Zealand, thank God for that. So while it's not perfect, I think we've had a good shot at this. And the other thing I wanted to say is, because this was mentioned too, about members who live outside their ward. I live outside my ward now because our earthquake claim got settled late last year, and I moved just out of the ward. But I don't believe you need to live in your ward. I know that ward, when I was living in Sumner, up on the hill before I got left my wife left me, I knew New Brighton because I was from there, I grew up there, and I know it now, and I'll always be there, even if I win lotto and live in Fendleton, further down the track. You know, it doesn't matter where you live, so long as you know what you're talking about and you've got a bit of heart. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
10 seconds left.
Anyone else? Mike.
Thank you. I'm going to make a principled decision not to support this today, and I think it's become very clear throughout the process just how completely flawed it is. And although obviously we're not the final decision maker, our recommendations will carry significant weight, and we currently have representation that favours the incumbent and an electoral system that favours the incumbent, and debates that challenge status quo are quickly voted down. And while the electoral system was not part of this review, we did have a significant number of submitters that asked us to look at our electoral system, urging us to shift to STV, which is an electoral system known to achieve better representation outcomes than our current system. And this council refused to get information to make an informed decision outside the current process. We have a recommendation in front of us today that is tainted by bias. And the problem is it's legislation that actually creates that poor outcome. While we should be playing a role in defining our community boundaries, we should not play a role in how we're elected.
Anyone else? Right, well, I'll wrap up the debate then. I just wanted to thank members for the quality of the debate. I really enjoyed listening to people's perspectives and the different points of view that were expressed. I think that often when we're dealing with issues like this, the best debates happen because people genuinely hold views and are willing to share them. What I appreciated, though, was where councillors have not got the change that they particularly want. I think that, but they felt that it's not worth it to oppose the recommendation that we've got because it's where we've got to. It's what did James say? I think it wasn't perfect, but it's good enough, you know. And so we do put it out there. I do agree with Mike though that this is not a good process, and you know, I hope that council before the end of this term revisits that question as to whether we would seek further advice on an STV option. Because I think we should have a public debate on it. I think there should be a mechanism for engaging our community. And is this the best way? It's an electoral system. It's not the question of the outcome. But then it enables a greater consideration of maybe multi-member wards, but it doesn't need to lead to that. I don't think multi-member wards would work without it. You know, that's my view. I think you have to have single-member wards in order to have a balance across the table. Balance comes in all sorts of different ways. Diversity comes in all sorts of different ways, and there's a lot for us to be thinking about in terms of the future of representation for Christchurch City. But there we go. I will now go through each and every one of these individual resolutions, and I don't know whether if people want, well, we'll go through each resolution, and if anyone wants it to be put to an individual vote, a division, then please just tell me. So the first one is to note that the council has deliberated on all of the submissions and resolved whether to accept or reject submissions. So that's been moved and seconded. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. You're abstaining from... Right. So the second one is that has reviewed the representation arrangements in accordance with various sections of the Act. And we are now voting that Christchurch City Council comprise a mayor and 16 councillors. I shall put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. That's carried. No. Okay. He was abstained. He abstained from the first one, and the rest you were just voting against.
And do you want it recorded?
And you want it recorded for each vote?
Can we not just move the whole of it once?
You don't know.
No. Anyway, okay, we'll carry on. So we're noting a no vote for Mike on the rest of them, right? So the members of the City Council other than the Mayor continue to be elected by the electors of each ward. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And that's no by, that's Sarah Templeton as well. Okay. The city continues to be divided into 16 wards with the population of each ward electing one member. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. That's carried. That the names of the wards are set out in the table below with the population each member will represent. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. That's carried. And Yanni have his vote recorded against that one as well. So that's Mike, Sarah and Yanni on that one. That the boundaries of each ward are those set out in the attached maps, and I'm assuming the same three. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. So, and Aaron Kewen. So,
To that one.
right. And Galloway. That the 16 wards reflect the following identified communities of interest. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Just that. So that's Mike, Sarah, Yanni. That's carried. The next one is in accordance with the local electorate. Each member represents is within the range of plus or minus 10%, and that only Banks Peninsula falls outside the stipulated range. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Aye. That's carried. Can hands up for those no, because there were a few more there. That the Banks Peninsula warrants a single member because Banks Peninsula is an isolated community in terms of 19B3 of the Local Electoral Act. Put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's okay. So that's Sarah and Mike and Aaron. Okay. That in light of the principles set out in section 4.1a of their Local Electoral Act, there be 6 communities represented by 6 community boards. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Oh, I wouldn't have thought the community boards was... Anyway, so that's Mike and Sarah. And that the names of the community boards are set out in the table below. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. That's carried. Sorry? Oh, Yanni said no to that one as well. That the Linwood Central Heathcote community is abolished and the wards are united with other communities. I'll put that motion. Should that say community board?
Because the boards represent the community.
Technical term. Yeah. Okay, I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. That's carried, and that's Mike, Sarah, and Yanni, and Jake. That the boundaries of each community and its subdivisions are altered and are those set out in the attached maps. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried, and that's Mike, Sarah, Yanni and Anne. That the communities continue to be subdivided for electoral purposes as follows. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried, and that's Mike, Sarah, Aaron. With respect to the 5 community boards being Waitai, Coastal, Burwood, Linwood, etc., I won't read them all out, comprising 9 members each, being both elected and appointed members, as set out below. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried, and that's Mike and Sarah and Yanni. That the Banks Peninsula Community Board comprises 8 members, being both elected and appointed, etc. Put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried, so that's Mike, Sarah and Aaron. And then item number 3. These, okay. A, yeah, I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Yeah, 3A. Your aye on that? Yeah, so it's just Mike and Sarah against. The continued retention of the Banks Peninsula Ward. Put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. So that's Mike, Sarah and Aaron. The reduction of community boards to 6 best provides for fair and equitable representation. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. So that's Mike, Sarah, Jake and Yanni. The adjustments to community boundaries reflect the reduction in the number of community boards and change boundaries, given that 5 urban communities now all comprise 3 wards. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. So that's Mike, Sarah, Yanni. The use of gifted te reo Māori names for community boards recognises the gifts, the relationship and formalises the use of the names. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Notes that the council must give public notice of its final decision within 6 weeks of submissions closing, and that there is an appeals and objection process to follow. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. That's carried. And that we agree that the Chief Executive be authorised to make any necessary minor corrections in the documents prior to notification. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And that is the lump sum of resolutions. So thank you very much, and thank you, councillors, for your contribution today. I really do appreciate the way people have participated in the debate, and I'm very pleased that we've been able to resolve this at this point, and I'd like to again thank staff for an incredible effort. I just don't think that the general public know how much work goes on behind the scenes when doing a representation review. But thank you, John, and thank you, Chris, especially, and the team over there.
Those are the 3 work
and Joe. Yeah. Thank you very much for all of this work. It's phenomenal. It's really, really impressive. So thank you very much, and I'd like to invite Councillor Daniels to close with a karakia whakamatuma.
Ka pai tōku hoa me ngā kaimahi ka mautuehi. So I'm about to say te reo Māori, well I'll say it first and then I'll tell you what I said. Te tapu o tātou kōrero ka whakahokia ki te whare, and what I just said was fuel.
And I'll declare the meeting closed at 2:00. Thank you very much. Thank you.